All right, here we go. This is going to have sound, and that's going to be a problem. Welcome to our online daytime capstone presentations. Oh, good, it is muted. My name is Amanda Hale. I have been instructing for this fabulous cohort and helping our grads today learn everything that they have mastered to get to this point. We've really worked very hard on web development fundamental skills, and they have built out their own products front to back with all of their own ideas from conception to implementation, and they're going to present for us today. We're very excited. Jay Wengrow, our CEO, is going to give us a bit of an introduction.
Hi, thank you, Amanda. So I'm Jay, the CEO of Actualize. I just wanted to express to everyone watching that you have no idea how hard our students work. They learn an incredible amount of material and skills in such a short time, and they do this while doing other things in their lives as well. It's a very intense program, but they've really given it their all. And what you're going to see now is just a small representation of some of the things that they've worked on and learned. And I'm super excited to see their capstone projects. I also just want to take this moment to thank everyone involved with making this cohort happen. First and foremost, Amanda Hale, our amazing lead instructor who led this cohort from beginning to end, also assisted by Megan, Jonathan, and our amazing careers team, Lisa and Sarah, and many more people. It takes a lot to make this happen, and I just want to thank everyone for being a part of it. And I'm really excited to see the capstones. Just in advance, congratulations to all of our new grads.
Excellent. Joining us today is also Salik, who's going to be helping us to panel for our capstone presentations today. Salik, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I'm Salik. I am a software engineer at Litmus, and I went through boot camp as well, so I know where all of you are and how important and fun this moment is. So really looking forward to seeing all these presentations, and yeah.
Wonderful. All right, first up, Ishmael is going to present for us, and Jay will be paneling for Ishmael this morning.
There we go. Thank you, Amanda, and super excited. My name is Ishmael. 4 months ago, I did not know how to code. I've got a professional background in sales. The first 4.5, 5 years of my professional career, I was in car sales. And the last 2.5, I was in software sales as an account executive, most recently at a startup. I guess I'll start off by talking about my motivation for getting into coding. Among many other reasons, one of the big driving factors of why I wanted to learn how to code is to be able to gain skills to help better the world. I think it's a skill set that can be used to do a lot of good, and I want to be able to do that with what I've learned here. So my app is called Community, and it is your hub to get more involved in your community. So when I first moved to Chicago, I didn't know a lot of people, and I wanted to be able to get more involved. And it was very difficult finding events, scrounging through Facebook, Eventbrite, Instagram, whatever you may find. And I thought it'd be cool to just have one place to find all of those events to go to. So I'm going to walk us through the app as a user who is just hitting the site that is not logged in. Then I'll take us through registration, and then what the site looks like after you register, and then log out, log back in as a already made user to walk you through additional features that you get as a user as well too. So when you first hit the site, it's very basic. You have two options here. You can view all of your groups. In this case, I've got 3 here. So you can see we've got One Tail at a Time, a local animal shelter, Volunteering Untapped, a group that I was a part of when I first moved here, and then Plant Chicago as well too. So a couple of things I want to point out here with the features are. You're going to notice causes here at the bottom. In the future, what I'm looking to do is allow the user to add specific causes that a group is a part of, and then in the future, be able to filter those down. So if you are looking for a specific cause to help, you can, filter your results and go through to that. So you can scroll through, see what they're all about, as well as view their upcoming events. And when you view an upcoming event, you're going to see that it's going to list out how many volunteers are needed. And then in the future, it'll also say how many are going. So you know if they are well manned or not, and if it's an event that you're looking to go to. And then, of course, you can go to all events. So now I will take us through the registration process, and I will sign up Amanda at example.com. The most secure password ever. And it's going to take you back to the home page. So you do have to then log in as that user. We'll log in here. And you're going to notice that a few things do come up here. One, as a logged in user, your name will pop up here on the top. And then it's going to list out your RSVPs as well as your group. So Amanda just signed up. She doesn't have any. So let's go find her an event to sign up for. We are going to look at one tail at a time and view their next event, which is petting dogs. Looks like they need 1,000 volunteers, and they will be petting all the dogs until their arms hurt. So we are most definitely going to be RSVPing to that. Set it up as going, submit the RSVP, and go back to your home page, and you're going to see, I actually clicked it twice, that you do now have your events that are listed here. So it's your hub. You can see what are upcoming events you have, and you can then go to that event, update your RSVP if necessary, or not. So now I will log us out. I'm going to log us in again as a user who has created a group, and my puppy Mavi created a couple of groups. So let's go here, and you're going to see that he created Plant Chicago. Surprisingly, he didn't create one tail at a time. So when you are a user who did create a group, you now have the opportunity to create events and or update your groups or update your events as well. So one feature that I wanted to add into this is after an event is created, you can then go in and update it, but also update specific tags for that event. So the way I had this set up in the back end was actually as a separate model for tags, and then utilizing join tables, a join table for each event. And the reasoning behind this was so that in the future, as a user, if you do RSVP to events, the system would be able to track what specific tags you followed or you gear more towards. So then in the future, a new feature set that I'm hoping to add is a recommendation engine where the computer will know, the app will know how many, what events you've gone to and what specific tags. So then I can start pulling it in from new events and then start recommending them to you below. So you will add your tags here. And so let's just add the park. And you can see it does pop up here too as well. So as an MVP, I'm pretty proud of this. I had obviously a lot of plans for it, but I think this is an awesome first step, and there's a lot of room to improve and grow upon. But I think the initial framework for what I'm hoping to put together is a good foundation for this app to really take off. And that is all I have. So thank you.
Yeah, Ishmael, this is a really fantastic app. I love the idea behind it. It's amazing. You have a couple of questions. There's obviously a lot of stuff going on here. There's users and groups and events, and you mentioned the tags. I would imagine that some thought went into creating the database schema behind that. What was that process like for you?
Time consuming. Luckily, I mean, we went through a practice through the course utilizing Google Sheets. So I really just had to think about what models would be specific to something. Like obviously an event is an event, but then it dove into like, what do I want to be able to do with the tags or the causes? Initially, I was going to have a single tag for each event, but then it dawned on me that having that join table or an event tags model to join the event model as well as the tag model will really open up the app to kind of scale into that next level of, hey, let's see what you've actually RSVP'd to, and then start recommending those newer events that start popping up in the future.
Yeah, that makes sense. Is the RSVP, is that also at the join table? I guess I shouldn't go too deep into the weeds here, but whatever. Okay, yeah. Starting to map it out in my head.
To answer it, it is, yeah. So the models I have are events, users, sessions, of course, and then groups. Group belongs to a user, event belongs to a group, and then we've got tags and causes. So tags belong to an event, and then the causes belong to an event. I'm sorry, a group. I have to look at my schema again because I'm confusing
that's fine.
myself.
I wasn't.
Those two are the join tables.
My ultimate point is I'm just really impressed in how you're able to put that all together. There's definitely a lot of complexity there, so I appreciate that. What part of the project did you enjoy building the most?
Well, it is going to be the back end. I found myself really enjoying the thought process that goes into how this is all going to come together. I feel like work better on the back end just because I don't have to worry about what it's going to look like on the front end. I can really use all of my mind and thought process into what kind of data am I going to be able to produce for the end user, and then how are they going to be able to manipulate that to add all these new cool features and uses for the app.
Yeah, that makes sense. Are you using some kind of front end framework for your app?
Yes. So this front end is Vue.js and Bootstrap for the theme. Cool. And I guess to cover the back end, it's built in Ruby, Ruby on Rails, and a Postgres database.
Got it. Excellent. Ishmael, this is really, like I said, it's a fantastic app. I'm really impressed. It also looks great. So nice job.
Thank you. And thank you for Amanda for getting me through this, because last week I was one of those that was absolutely freaking out about getting it done.
Happens to all of us. I've been in those shoes too, What are you going to do? Ian Silber is going to be up next with another fantastic presentation, and Salik will be paneling for Ian today.
All righty. Hello, everybody. I'm Ian Silber. As some of my classmates know, I'm a bit of a cryptocurrency nerd. I think the technology is really interesting if you can look past the Ponzi schemes and the scamminess of it. There's some really interesting stuff going on. So I knew I wanted to make a project that revolved around that. And I also wanted to make a project that would use lots of APIs. I like the idea of live updating features. So here on the homepage, we just have like our top 3 moving cryptocurrencies. And then down here, we have the top 15 with some different information. And then we have some top 5 stories related to it. So then up here, we have we can either go to here to sign up, or we can click this, or if we try to get to our positions, it will automatically route us to our login. So when we get here, we have a price chart showing off how our portfolio has performed over the past 7 and 30 days. This was a big challenge because none of the APIs, the free ones, would allow for historical price data. They only had 7-day percentage and 30-day. So I had to do the math of weighting my portfolio and then using the percentages to calculate what our value would be 30 and 7 days ago. So down here, we have a donut chart that shows our diversification of our portfolio. And we have the ability to add and edit our positions. So that's some, oh, my keyboard disconnected, Bluetooth. There we go. We'll add Doge because everybody seems to know what that one is. So it takes a second because there's just so much data being pulled in through the back end. And as you can see, it updated. I can't grab that. It's too small a percentage because our portfolio is worth $7 million because we're just killing it. So that was probably where I put a lot of my focus, was just on this page, because it was the main functionality I wanted to get down, just a way to track all of your assets and see what they're worth. So then we're going to go down to watch list, which I didn't spend near as much time on this. So I'll be honest, it's not my favorite part, but I wanted the user to be able to create multiple watch lists and name them different things. Say you want to focus on DeFi, or maybe you want to watch list for your NFT gaming projects or metaverse stuff, something like that. So you can click on this and you can add an asset just like before. So say we want to see what Litecoin's doing. It'll add it and show us different stats. And this part, I wanted to include it, even though it's not quite finished. What I wanted to be able to do, which I didn't have time to because of the code freeze, I want to be able to click on an asset and then have the chart appear. But again, I just ran out of time to figure it out, but the idea is there. You can imagine it works. Really quickly, I just want to show the biggest problem I had was with the APIs, because with all of this, it's pulling in so much data that I was overwhelming my API calls. And that was a bug that I didn't even realize what was going on, because it doesn't say API call overwhelmed or something. It just says nil class. So I had to come up with a little janky solution where I basically just signed up for like 10 API keys. And I'll just show them because they're free. If someone wants to go through the effort of stealing them, go right ahead. So I got all these API keys here, and I just did a API key sample. So each time it runs through this loop, it picks a different key so that I don't overwhelm my request. And I just did that for all of my different controllers. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That's my app. It was so much fun to build, and just want to really quickly say thank you so much to my TAs. You guys were amazing. Y'all were so helpful throughout the whole course. And thank you to Amanda, probably the best teacher I've ever had. So just huge thanks to you for making this app possible. All right, and open it up to questions.
This is super impressive.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, love the app. I think it looks great. Obviously, you're pulling tons of data, so like that's also, I think even just like having the janky solution with the API keys is a great one, because it's, I mean, with an MVP, you just like need things to work, right? I have so many interesting questions, so I need to like pick my favorites, but I guess let's start with the data. Like, how was it working with this API? When you found it, was it kind of like, oh, cool, this like fits nicely in Rails? Did you have to do any kind of like crazy maneuvering around it? What was that experience like in general?
Yeah, so I actually started off using the Binance API, but I could not find any documentation on it anywhere. So I was basically looping through 7,000 different cryptocurrencies, trying to match it to whatever the portfolio position was. And then obviously you have to start over for the next coin. So you're going through 7,000 cryptocurrencies over and over again. It was a terrible solution, and it took like 8 seconds to load. So I was like, I gotta ditch this. So I ended up switching to this, where instead I'm looping through and calling the API again and again, but passing in the symbol, which I couldn't do with the Binance API. So I ended up switching to this CoinMarketCap one. So yeah, that solves the problem of the speed. But then again, I had to come up with this solution because you're looping through this and calling it like 20 times in a second. So I'm afraid they'll soon block my IP address or something, but for now it works.
If you had to do this again, knowing what you know now, would you change anything from the scoping of the project to anything in how you would approach it?
I'd probably try and I was really wanting to just load it with features and have lots of different things show up on the page, and I didn't want to have like just one feature on a page. So I think I would have had a lot less trouble had I just focused on making a few things work really well instead of putting so much on my plate. But it ended up working, so I guess I'm happy with it. I think another big problem I had to deal with was that I didn't really understand Charts.js too well, and and these line chart and donut chart components, instead of propagating the data, because I didn't really understand how to do that with these charts, I'm just calling it again, so for that one page, I have 3 different calls to that route, which is then looping through it like 8 times. So it's not efficient, but it works. That would be something I would change. Learning how to do
Yeah, that was my next question. I was like, oh, those look like Chart.js. I wonder.
Yeah, that was a big struggle to figure out. I definitely got a lot of help from Ian Boyle. He helped me a lot with Charts.js, so shout out to him.
Well, it looks really slick, and I think when you were demoing, the loading times look great. So, congrats.
Appreciate it.
All right, nicely done, Ian. Next up, we have got Jarrett, and Jay will be paneling for Jarrett today.
All right. I'm Jarrett, and I made a League of Legends damage calculator. You don't need to know too much about the game going into it, and I'll explain what I need to, but basically you choose a champion out of 157, I believe, in the full game. I do not have that many implemented. As you play through the game, they gain levels through XP, which is gained through a number of ways, but it's really not important. And they all have their own set of abilities, which all do a ton of unique things. So I'll choose Caitlyn's Filter for Peacemaker. And every time you get a level in the game, you can put a level into an ability. So at level 6, Caitlyn will usually have 3 points in that ability. So that should be enough to do a simple calculation. It'll do this much damage. The specific ability does full damage to the first enemy and 60% damage to every other enemy it hits. Okay, so the major way that you scale through the game is by building items. So I only have these 2, and that is the first item Caitlyn will build in almost every case. And then you can resubmit and it will increase the damage. You can add another one, it'll increase the damage again. All right, a major kind of a thing that I had to deal with when I designed the thing is there's just so many champions and all of them have at least 4 in most cases abilities. So a big part of my back-end design was kind of just making things reusable as much as possible. So there are a bunch of these abilities that will take the same path with just different numbers. Some of them will have to take different paths. Like in this case, we'll use a Kali, we'll push her at level 6, and the training dummy at level 6 as well. And we'll use her second cast of her ultimate at level 1. So if you use it on a champion with full HP, which I'll put as 1000 because that's what dummy's full HP is, it will default, but for demonstration, I'll put 1000 and it will do 40 damage. But if they have 300 HP remaining, then it will do 160 damage. And yeah, and that's pretty much the main functionality. You can have all the calculations are in this history place where there's the last one I did, there's the one before it. But yeah, that's basically what it does.
Yeah, Jarrett, this is great. Really nice job. I'm curious to know like what inspired you to create this app.
I wanted to get a bit closer to, because of course I play the game and I understand it as far as I have to, but I find it really interesting just as far as like the design goes, I guess. So I wanted to just kind of take a try at doing it myself. I didn't really look up how they do it. I just kind of looked up how they do the math, like what just whatever I needed, like all the champion stats and how their abilities scale. And then I was like, okay, I want to figure out how to design this in a way that's not going to be a total pain to implement. And I guess that was fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. I know I'm about to ask a question that I'm not going to follow the answer to anyway, but I'm curious about the math. Like, what is going into this math? Is it complex math? Do you have to like have different numbers for every type of item and level and ability? Like, what is going into this?
Yeah, so it's the math itself isn't too difficult. It's just the number of things that kind of go into it. Because you know, the champions, their levels will give them stats. The items they build will give them stats. Their abilities themselves have both flat scaling per level as well as percent scaling per level, and sometimes those change and sometimes they're not the same number, like incrementing. So like I have to deal with how do I deal with something that doesn't scale linearly in a way that isn't going to just be totally hard coded every time? How can I reuse that type of thing?
Okay, like in your database, do you have to like assign like numerical values to each type of item and
Yeah, so I
ability?
have, I can pull it up. So these are the things that go into the champions. So
Okay,
this is their stats and how far they go up every time they level. This is the stats that go into the items. There's Doran's Blade, Doran's Ring. So Doran's Blade gives you 8 attack damage, and Doran's Ring will give you 15 ability power. And then all the abilities have all of this stuff. This is at the end is what I'm using to actually find which ability it is in the back end when I pass it like an ID. That's how it routes to the method. And then there's base stats, and then base scaling, and then scaling per level. And it's kind of a headache even for me to follow. So it just kind of is what it is. I'd
yeah.
probably do it a different way, but I had to build it up kind of incrementally. So I didn't necessarily know which cliff I was about to fall off every time I did something, but I did my best.
No, this is incredible. I had a feeling that when we'd peek under the hood, we'd see lots of these kind of numbers going on. It's really cool how you were able to pull that together. You know, one of the first of all, I love the history feature. I think that's a really nice addition. Did you have any trouble implementing the feature of where you can add, you know, how you made it that where you add a new, I think it was item, then it immediately pops up like the ability to add another item, and you can keep on doing that. Was that tricky or is that straightforward?
I think that was pretty straightforward. It's just like Vue.js, VF. If the one before it exists, then make a new one. If that one then exists, then make another one. The
Okay.
number of slots goes up to 6. So it has to handle, you know, if there's none, if there's 1, if there's 3, which was a little awkward, but got it done.
Awesome. Last question. What would be the next thing that you would add to this, given the time?
Probably just more champions and more items. It does most of what it needs to do. You know, I think it needs a lot more of just uses for it to do, you know, before I would worry about like users or something like that.
Okay, that makes sense. I hope you put this out there. I feel like it could be a really useful tool to lots of people who play the game.
Thanks.
Really impressive, Jarrett. Congrats.
Thank you, Jarrett. I don't know much about the game, but like in talking to Jonathan, who does play the game, he was like, this is so cool. And like, really just gives me a lot of appreciation for all of the like math that I feel like people are doing when they're playing this game, not using some kind of calculator, you know, like it just seems like it's way ahead.
It's just years worth of muscle memory. You just kind of accept that you're bad at the game for most of when you play it. That's just how it goes. So you gotta stay healthy, I guess.
Excellent. Next up, we've got Philip, and Salik will be paneling for Philip today.
Hello, my name is Philip Job. When I was younger, I was not a fan of the whole Halloween. I was a fan of the free candy, but the masks and stuff freaked me out when I was a kid until about my sophomore year of high school. And my buddy said, "You need to check this movie out. It's called Saw." And I watched it. And from that point on, I've been just consuming as much horror as I possibly can. I found with like your IMDb's and things like that, it was they wouldn't let you deep dive enough into the actual subgenres of horror. So that's what this app here does. It lets you build a watch list. If you have an account, you can click on the skull there to sign in, and I'll sign myself in if I can spell my name correctly. And it immediately throws you to your current watch list. It gives you the box art for each one, and it tells you down here you can set it whether you've loved it, hated it, watched or not watched it, and to I would like to in the future make it to where I can update this as well. I didn't get far enough ahead to do that, but you can also go to the actual movies and you can search. You can sort them by the title, which will throw them into alphabetical order, or you can search by genre. And just by typing in, say, vampire, it will pull up all of the movies in that category. And you can go to the actual box art, more info, and it will take you to the show page for the movie. It gives you a little bit of a plot description, the subgenre, and to add it to your list, you can put in this box, not watched, which is true of this one for me, which is one I would love to watch, but I can't ever find it anywhere. And that's another thing I would like to do later with the app is be able to hook it up to where you can find where to stream or buy or watch any of the movies that are on your list. If you log out, you can still see the movies, but you cannot add anything to your list until you've either created an account or you have signed into your account. One of the big things was finding an API that I did not find that could help me bring in a lot of this data. So I had to hard code all these movies in with all the box art as well to make it look how I wanted it to look. It took a while. I think there was 289 total that I hard coded in. And one of the other real challenges was to get to this layout correctly. I think it took Jonathan, Amanda, and I and Meg about an hour or so during the one day to figure out this portfolio class that came with my bootstrap theme. It fought me tooth and nail, and by the end of it, it was like we finally figured out. It's like, all right, it's break time. We're done. It got a little screwy there towards the end. So that is pretty much all I've got. If I can open it up for questions now.
This looks awesome.
Thank you.
I love the theming, and also like appreciate sort of I know you had to hard code these in, but it kind of means like this is like a super curated list, which is really awesome. So I hope this makes it out into the universe. My first question is around the box art. So there's obviously a lot of images here, and images can like really slow down loading, but loading seems to be pretty snappy. How are you handling the images?
I literally hard coded them into the actual movies as well. So I found a movie, I found an image of the box art and just copied the link, threw it into the hard code data so it would pop up every time. There was a couple I had to change. They must have changed in a couple of days, and most of those got thrown down here to the bottom when it updated. Once I get down to the bottom, and like the conspiracy had updated theirs. I think Raw had a bad one, and so did the Taste of Fear. So I went in and found new images for those and updated them.
Got it. Got it. Okay. So those are just like URLs like
Yeah.
within a row. Okay, nice. Nice. How was, I guess, were there any surprises when you were building this? And if you were to do it again, are there any decisions that you would make in hindsight?
I think some of the other I'd work a little more on the functionality of like the updating and stuff like that. It was kind of like the last couple of days. I was like, oh man, I forgot to throw in the update feature to be able to change it. And I also built a drop down here that would be able to take you to each one of those lists. That way you could have them separated, and then you could see the different ones that you've liked, hated, all that. So I don't think I'd change anything about building the database, because like I said, the APIs were a little lax on how deeply you could get into like the subgenres. And this isn't even like all of the subgenres, because there's subgenres that I didn't even, because there was like 75 of those. I was like, I'm not playing with those too. So
Wow. That's awesome. Did you have more fun on the front end or the back end?
I think the back end, honestly, it definitely, like, going through and building the whole database kind of gave me it made me create my own list of stuff as I was doing. This is stuff that I'd never heard of, that I was like, I need to check this movie out now. So I definitely preferred the back end though, setting up the routes and all that. I like that more than having, like Ish said, to have worry about how the front end looks. So
Makes sense. Cool. Thank you so much and congrats.
thank you.
Good job, Philip. This looks really amazing, and I love how you were able to get this theme like to behave, because
I'm
like you mentioned,
telling
that
you.
was a challenge.
I mean, even the background was a challenge, and I finally got that figured out. And I mean, I like how it looks so far. So I hope I can do little updates and make it look even cooler.
Next up, we've got Ian Boyle, and Jay will be paneling for Ian today.
All right, so I'm Ian Boyle. Similar to Ian Silber's app, I have a portfolio tracker, but instead of investing in the Ponzi scheme known as cryptocurrencies, I like to invest in the Ponzi scheme known as the stock market. So my investing approach is a top-down approach. So instead of researching individual companies, I like to find sectors and industries that I think will outperform the market. And from there, I'll buy a basket of companies. So I don't like to do a lot of research into those companies. I just know that like a rising tide will lift all boats, if I'm correct. So because of that, I wanted an app that would group stocks by sector and industry. So as you can see on this homepage, we just need to add a ticker symbol, purchase price, and quantity of shares, and it'll do the rest for you. You can watch your portfolio increase or decrease in value. And as I said, group stocks by sector and industry. So we'll go ahead here and log in. And this is the home page, and it looks like we don't own anything. So we'll add a position. We'll add Apple. We'll say we bought it at 150 and we bought 2 shares. So I use an API to get all this information. So this is the current price. As I said, we bought it at 150. So looks like we've gained about $52 and total gain loss of 17%. And it currently takes up 100% of our account. And then as we can see here, we have a sector and industry for this position. Let's go ahead and add another one. Another well-known one of Microsoft. Let's say we bought it at 350 and bought 1 share. So same thing, but looks like we're down about 15% on this position. As we can see, it's the same sector as Apple, but a different industry. So again, trying to group positions by sector and industry was something I wanted to do and achieved. So I'm pretty happy about that. I'm going to go ahead and add some more real quickly. GM car company. And just to be clear, none of this is financial advice. Please do not take these recommendations as do your own research. So let's do Ford. So we bought it at 30, 10 shares. And we'll do Amazon. Oops. And something cool about this is a lot of brokerage accounts are offering fractional shares. So we bought it at 4,000. So that's something I wanted to implement. There's no way I could afford a share of Amazon. But I could definitely afford a 1/10 of a share. All right, so now we've got, a decent amount of money in here. $1,800 is the current value of our account. And now, so as you can see, these are clickable over here. And I've got these charts similar to Ian Silber. I use Charts.js. And we can see we have 70% in auto manufacturers, 30% in internet retail. And over here, we have our stocks within this sector. So we have General Motors about 51%, Ford at 18.2%, and Amazon at about 30.81%. And then we can click on an individual industry and see how this industry is broken down by our equities here. So that's pretty much what the app does. We can go back to positions. Every time we go to this page, these current prices re-upload based on that's how I wrote my index action in the back end. Obviously, if the stock market's closed, then it'll remain constant. And then on the home page, I've got, so this is all fake data that I seeded in. And we can see here that it says our portfolio values 1,048. If we remember, it was 1,800 last time, I think. Or yeah, 1,800. So I have this update historical data button here. So that should update it. And as you can see now, today seemed to be a pretty good day because we're up about $900 in the last 24 hours and $800 in the last month. So today's been really good for us. So yeah, that's about it. I really enjoyed making this app. There's eventually I'd like to be able to read in a CSV of equities, because as I said, I take a top-down approach. And so if you have 5 or 6 sectors or industries, and then you have 5 to 10 stocks in each sector, adding each one in would kind of take a while. So to add in a CSV that'll just do all that automatically would be pretty cool. And then eventually I'd like to have a graph of how your portfolio is performing against the market. Or an individual sector is performing against the market. So yeah, that's about it. I'm open for questions now.
Ian, this is so good. This is such a great app. It looks amazing, and it has lots of really cool features. I'll start by asking you, of all these features, which was the most challenging to implement?
Well, I would say just overall the associations. Because a stock has a sector and an industry, and I associated stocks with individual users, but I didn't do that with sectors and industries because I didn't want a repeat of sector for multiple different users. But then when we go to our sectors page, the way I access this data is through the sector model. And so if I had a different user, their sector data would appear here as well. So that's something I'm kind of working on.
Cool.
And then I would say that this historical data here is also this was probably the most difficult one, honestly.
Okay.
It was the one I did last and probably had the least amount of time to work on. So.
Got it. What was it like working with which API are you using, by the way?
So similar to Ian Silber, I use 2 APIs, Yahoo Finance and Financial Modeling. So I have in my backend, I could pull it up. I have an if statement basically saying, oh wait, it's not going to work. Hold on. So I have this, I run through all the stocks, and then I said, if this exists, use this API, basically update the price. Otherwise, use the other API, because with financial modeling, you get 150 calls per day. And then Yahoo Finance, you get 100. So I said, use this one first. And then the same thing for the create method. I say, you know, if this exists, use this this API. Otherwise, use the other one.
Were the APIs themselves easy to work with, or was that a challenge?
The Yahoo one was a bit challenging. You have to require all of these different gems. So what I would do is I would just open a basic Ruby file and try accessing the data from there. And once I figured it out, I would implement it into the Capstone.
Yeah. Last question for now. Did anything surprise you in building this project?
Well, you know, I definitely really enjoyed the back end, like trying to figure out how things should be associated with each other. But actually, I didn't think I would enjoy the front end, and I like trying to make my app look good.
It looks great. How do you do the table? Are you using something for that, or is it just Vue.js or what?
So yeah, that's part of the Bootstrap theme I picked.
Okay.
It's not foolproof, like this no entries found thing. I have no idea how to get rid of that. And eventually I'd like if you watch, I'll click this and everything will disappear.
Okay.
That's supposed to filter so that like it, you know, like the top, you know, current cost per share is the highest one.
Yeah. It looks great. It looks really snappy. And I also like that image of that like mannequin watching his stonks tank.
Yeah, that's definitely
good. Yeah. Congrats, Ian. Super job. Really impressed. Yeah, there it is.
Not to downplay all of the work that you've done, but that's my favorite part too. Like, who doesn't love a good meme?
I had to throw in something for the non-stock people.
Ian are gonna write new investment software and, you know, take over the world. Y'all can handle my finances because I don't know what I'm doing. Next up, we have got Shane, and Salik will be paneling for Shane today.
Thanks, Amanda. Apologies, I got to get all your faces back. There we go. All right, I am Shane Nicholson, and this is my app, Dynamic Solar Systems. I was inspired to make this app because I'm a very big nerd. I'm a big fan of playing tabletop RPGs. The most well-known of them would be Dungeons and Dragons. And there are a lot of tools out there for building your own worlds, making your own maps, and just a lot of world building tools. They're all catered, however, towards fantasy settings, whereas I am a big fan of sci-fi settings. And so I thought to myself, how could I make an application that would allow me to create my own worlds, my own solar systems, and not only have all that in a convenient location, but also be able to kind of get a visual of it in motion. So we can get started here by logging in. I do have a sign up feature, but I'm going to use my account because it has just a lot more data in there that we can look at. So go to shane@example.com. Password is 1234. I don't mind that getting out there. Everybody can look at my work. That will throw you back to the home page where you can take a look at your systems. So this page is an index of all of the systems that you have created. So from the top to the bottom, it just shows them from oldest to newest. So we can take a look at a very familiar system, which is the Sol system, our home star. When we go here, this will be the home system show page. You get whichever image you have attributed to that solar system. We have the option to add a planet or add a local star. And then down here, we have a list of all our stars and planets. This list is ordered by orbital distance. So your sun will always appear at the very top because it has no orbital distance. And then from there, we have Mercury, Venus, from the closest planets to the farthest planets away from your home star. Each of these can be viewed and edited. So let's take a look at Earth, which is succinctly titled home. Here we can see the diameter in kilometers, the mass in 10 times to the 24th power kilograms, the orbital distance. 1 AU is the distance between the Earth and the Sun, which is the standard that I have measured everything. And then our orbital period, which is 1 year, the time it takes for our planet to rotate around the Sun. This can all be edited or deleted. So I think I'll wipe Earth out of my solar system. It's a sad thing, but it'll happen eventually. And from there, we can re-add it. So I will go up here and add a planet. We'll call it Earth. Our diameter is, I have this all in a little notepad over to my right, 1,205 or 756 kilometers. Our mass is 5.96. Our orbital distance is pretty easy. It's 1 AU. Our orbital period is 365 days. Our planet color will be green. We're technically more blue, but I think green is more striking. And then we can find any image we want and just upload the URL for a nice high resolution photo. And I'll rename it back to home. And here you can see it'll show up back in our list in the proper place because it uses the orbital distance to figure out where it should be in the list. This, however, is very simple. The theme didn't really have all of the features that I wanted. So a lot of this is custom CSS, but it didn't really bother me that this was simple because this is all kind of the lead up to being able to visualize the solar system. And so along with just being able to look at your planet's systems, edit, delete them, that sort of thing, I've also implemented the function using the animation software 2JS to be able to view a wider orrery of your custom systems. So if we scroll down to the bottom, we can take a look at that. This is our solar system. And so I have implemented hover over features so that when you hover over each orbit, it highlights the orbital line, it highlights the planet, and it gives you a nice little info panel in the upper left corner that contains relevant information such as orbital distance, period, diameter, and mass. Now, all of this is pulling information from the back end that we have inputted. These distances are interpolated from our orbital distance. How fast they rotate is interpolated from our orbital period. Same thing with their size is interpolated from the diameter and the color as well. All of these are correct in proportion to one another in size, except for the sun, because otherwise it would be far too big. And the distances I've tweaked with a little bit because I think it looks much better when everything is kind of close. Pluto does not orbit 5 AU, it orbits somewhere closer to 30. And you can see over here, Pluto is almost impossible to see. When you hover over it, you can just see the tiny little dot. Pluto's about 1 pixel, given that it's only 2,000 kilometers wide. This is a very familiar solar system. Everybody has seen it, but this also works with more exotic solar systems of your own creation or from popular sci-fi. Here we have the Trebian system. If anybody is familiar with the Mass Effect trilogy of science fiction games, this is where the alien race of the Turians come from. So this is a planetary system that only has 6 planets instead of 9, like in our system, because I still count Pluto. I love Pluto. And here we can still take a look at and edit all of these planets. And we can also take a look at the custom orrery for this solar system, where we have the more exotic planets, such as the sun of Trebia or the home system of Palavan. So that is the overview of my entire app, and I'm open to questions.
Wow, this is super, super cool. I feel like if I had discovered this on the internet as a kid, I would have just gone nuts. Like, this is really, really cool. So many questions. And by the way, I also love Pluto. Growing up, Pluto is my favorite planet. It was sad news when they said it wasn't.
He's still a planet in my heart.
Yeah, same here. Same here. I'm really interested in the calculations. Well, I guess I'm really interested in this screen. And one, the calculations that you did, is that logic on the back end, or are you doing that client side?
That is actually front-end logic. It pulls from the back end. I can give you a little taste of it, but this is all JavaScript, 100%. It uses the 2JS 2D animation library. This definitely took probably 3/4 of the time I spent on this app. I'd say 1/4 of my time was back end and front end, and then the other 3/4 was just creating the screen to make it work. I tried using 3JS to do 3D rendering and a couple other softwares, but eventually I toss those all aside because in 2JS, once I had little dots orbiting another dot, I knew that that was the basis. Once I could get something to orbit, I knew I could add the lines and everything else, and eventually it would work. So if we take a look at the back end, here is the orrery page. Now, unfortunately, it's very difficult to make this all dynamic. So I actually kind of cheated. There is one method for every combination of planets. So our very first method is for a solar system with no planets. It simply displays a single star. This right here gets my information from the back end and then initiates a new render. This basically just renders a black square in the background that allows us to manipulate objects on top of it. And here is the only variable, which is just the sun. And the sun is always a constant size, no matter how big it is in the systems, because I don't want you to have a gigantic sun where you can't see the planets. That would be no fun. And here's all of my highlight features. So when you hover over the orbit, it shows up the central star's name, its mass, and diameter. And then this just makes a bunch of little white stars in the background. If we take a look at all these little dots are individually rendered just tiny circles, just for aesthetics. But if we go back to the front end, this is an orrery with a single planet. So here we can see we're actually grabbing all the information from the back. So here are your calculations. This is the size of the planet that is calculated by the diameter. And here we have the location that it spawns in, which is your orbital distance. And then the planet's orbit is also calculated using the orbital distance. And here are our hoverovers for that. We have orbital distance, period, diameter, and mass. This is all just the stuff that shows up when you hover your mouse over the orbit. And then this one's a little bit more complicated because we have to choose how fast it goes. So here is our planet translation and rotation. And for each orrery that I made, each method, so orrery 3 supports 1 sun, 2 planets. Orrery 4 supports 1 sun, 3 planets, and it quickly got out of hand as I made one that could support up to 10 planets for our local system, which is orrery 10, which is about 3,500 lines of code. So every single method just gets a little bigger and bigger.
Wow. I mean, that's super, super impressive. I wonder, would you try to dry that up in any way in the future, do you think?
I would love to, honestly. This was like, I know this works and I have a limited amount of time, so I'm going to make it work. I would absolutely
looks great.
Dry it up. I honestly would love to do it in 3JS and make it entirely 3D. I'd scrap this whole thing, even though it looks really nice now. I want it to be even more complex. And if I could redo it, I would just know that I could save like a week by not messing with other libraries and just diving straight into 2JS. And I think I could have a more polished product, but I'm still very happy with what I ended up with.
Yeah, I mean, it looks fantastic. Fantastic.
I've stared at this screen for so long.
I honestly would. So if this goes live, please send me a link.
Absolutely.
All right, very cool. Thank you so much, Shane, and to the rest of our Capstone panelists. That concludes our first group. We'll be back in about 30 minutes with group number 2 at 1:30 Central. Thank you.